Well, right now, lawmakers across Texas and the nation are working to get to the bottom of what happened today.
Leaders with ties to Fort Hood were on standby in the aftermath of this shooting, and our political reporter Josh Hinkle reached out to many of them. Josh.
Well, you mentioned Michael McCaul. Obviously, he had a lot of our answers because he is the chairman of the House Homeland Security Committee. He says that we know so far the investigation rests with the FBI, the Defense Department, and as he also mentioned, the Joint Terrorism Task Force. Now, that word terrorism, it brings up a big debate from the last shooting 5 years ago at Fort Hood, with leaders still fighting over whether that was an act of terrorism or a case of workplace violence. It's a matter the Obama administration has had to deal with, and here's what he had to say today.
We know these families. We know their incredible service to our country and the sacrifices that they make. Obviously, our thoughts and prayers are with the entire community. And we are going to do everything we can to make sure that the community at Fort Hood has what it needs to deal with the current situation, but also any potential aftermath.
President Obama made those remarks from Chicago, stepping out of a Democratic fundraiser quickly. 5 years ago, his initial response came with some criticism that it wasn't fast enough or sensitive enough after that shooting. However, as you can see in this video from the eulogy days later that he gave, some said it was one of Obama's best speeches ever. And 1 week from today, he will be scheduled to be in Austin, one of 4 living presidents taking part in the LBJ Civil Rights Summit. It's likely the shooting will come up, and similar to his stop in the West area last spring after that town's deadly fertilizer explosion, he could adjust his schedule to visit Fort Hood again. Josh Hinkle, KXAN News.
Others responding today, including Governor Rick Perry. He released this statement tonight saying in part, quote, "Fort Hood has proven its resilience before and will again. Texas will support those efforts in any way we can with any resources necessary. The thoughts and prayers of all Texans are with everyone affected by this tragedy."
And Texas Senator John Cornyn speaking out tonight as well. The scenes coming in from Fort Hood today are sadly too familiar and still too fresh in our memories. No community should have to go through this horrific violence once, let alone twice. As our Chris Sadeghi said earlier tonight, you may not realize that many soldiers are prohibited from carrying weapons on bases such as Fort Hood. We uncovered this Department of Defense document that established limits on the carrying of firearms by military and civilian personnel. It goes on to say that firearms only be issued to qualified personnel when life or DOD assets will be jeopardized if guns are not carried. There's a bill currently before the House of Representatives that would repeal that ban, but tonight, the commanding general of 3 Corps told us just moments ago he is not in favor of changing current rules. We actually have a timeline at KXAN.com for you showing some of the most recent shootings on military posts and bases. This includes the deadly U.S. Naval Yard shooting in Washington last year and the killing at a naval institution in Norfolk, Virginia. Incidents like this are disturbing for the Pentagon. The Secretary of Defense, Chuck Hagel, addressing this while speaking this afternoon in Hawaii when asked about security at U.S. military bases.
We don't have any choice here but to address what happened and do everything possible to assure the safety of our men and women who work on these bases and their families. That isn't an option. It isn't a matter of a question or a challenge too tough. We will do it.
The Defense Secretary was in Honolulu for a meeting with Asian military leaders. Hagel promised to do everything he can to assure the safety of military personnel and their families going forward.